Andy, now you did write a book about what happens after the Dominion Wars, and without getting too much into the book, it's called A Stitch in Time, and I think it's the best Star Trek book I've ever read, hands down, honestly. And that was before I even knew that you had written it. I remember reading it many, many years ago and saying it's really great. And then my friend, I was like, you should read this. It's really good. He reads it, he gives it back to me. He says, wow, it was so good. And it was written by Garak. And I'm like, oh, I've had this book for a year and I had no idea. But anyway, do you want to give the people out there kind of the premise of it without getting too much into detail?
Well, I mean, the book is basically it's what happened. I mean, I just took off after how the series ended, and I was thinking of my parallel. What would it be like if you were a German a German who was an anti-Nazi who came back to, say, Berlin after the Second World War, and how do you start? The Stitch in Time comes from there's a Hebrew expression tikkun olam, which means it's healing the world. It's the concept of how do you heal a wounded world, which I think is pretty apt for where we're at now. I think we're so wounded right now. It's Jesus. I hope people are all pulling out their sewing kits and going to work.
Oh, I know Lisa got all the
like Garak did.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's always been an important concept for me. I mean, there has to be there's this other thing. I don't mean to get. I'm getting weird. I mean, I don't give a shit. I'm getting weird in my old age. It does make me. It's like there's another thing where there's this concept of the Lamed Vovnik, another Hebrew expression where there are 29 wise people in the world who are holding up the world, and that if these 29 people don't hold up the world, if any of them falter, and if they do falter and are not replaced, then the world ends. And it's like, and it comes from a beautiful book called The Last of the Just by Andrei Schwartz-Bart. And so essentially all of this is to say that was the underpinning of the book. And essentially, writers like Una McCorkle and McCormick, they've now taken the Cardassian thing, further. And I don't even know what the hell has happened, really. Other than now that I'm doing this thing with Sid, and there's this fellow Matthew Campbell who's writing these scripts that Sirach will appear in next week.
Yes. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah. So I'm finding out stuff that's I had no idea. I knew that Garak was the Castellan, but that's not a word that I think I ever used. But the head of the Cardassian, whatever they call it,
Obsidian Order.
That's about it. What?
Obsidian Order.
Well, he's that too. He's still
it's all over the place.
Once a spy, always a spy.
Now, by the way, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but guys, we will include in the description box below a website where people can sign to say we want Andrew Robinson to do the audio reading of this book, A Stitch in Time, which would just be amazing. It would give Andy something awesome and fun to do, some good work to do.
Yes, and he needs something awesome and fun.
And it would give us something awesome to listen to.
It's just beautiful. Thanks, Brian. Thank you for that.